Hello, everyone. I am hopping on. MJ and I kind of got our wires crossed, so we're just going to hit this now. We're excited about getting to talk to one another. Hopefully the time change doesn't mess too many people up, as it seemed to confuse both her and I. So I'll take the blame for this one. Primarily my fault. So we're just going to give it a moment while she hops on here. And hopefully we'll get rolling here in just a second. All right. So thank you for joining us on this. Well, here it's a very warm Thursday afternoon. All right. So my pipe is going. Just waiting for MJ to hop right on here, and we will get moving. So hopefully she is aware of this, and I'll see if I can remind her of this as well. All right. I've just sent her a message. So how's everybody doing today? Everybody good, I hope? All I know is we are getting close to the end of a week that has been incredibly long, at least for my part. And I'm hoping that Friday comes here quickly, as I have been stressed about all kinds of things this week. So I see that she is just logged on. She's going to join here in a second. And we will get rolling, as I've been excited to talk to her for a long time. Just waiting for it to show up here. Everything going okay, MJ? Seeing if you'll connect or not. Technology is a wonderful thing. I also want to wish everybody happy Pride Month. It's been a great month. Really enjoyed the parades and everything. So hope that you've been supporting and encouraging people to speak up and to live their truth. So, MJ, you've got to push the button to join. It should be beside your name if you want to join, or there should be a little, I think, camera or something down the bottom to where you can push to join that as well. And we'll see if we can get this rolling. Well, if you have any questions, just drop it in the box, and I'll do the best I can. I don't know how it works on your computer, MJ. I know that works how it works on the phone. So I don't know if I've ever done it by a computer. So in order to join by computer, that is something I'm unfamiliar with. If that helps you at all, it might be easier just on your phone. It might work better. Okay, so when you join, all I know is when you join your phone, there should be a join button next to your name when you log in there. Okay, so you push my picture as you've just done. You're on there now, and so right off to the right should be join or something like that. Click the join, and so you push that, and then what I do is I accept that. Now, if you're on the computer, I don't know how that works because I don't know if I've ever done it on a computer, to be honest. I don't know if that helped you out or not. You're talking to another. There we go. I'm not a very tech savvy person.
Hi.
Hey.
Well, I just used my phone because I don't know what else to do.
Yeah, I don't. I've never done it by a computer, so I don't know. Uh, it's
I'll
all.
try to keep it steady.
I'm so sorry for the time shenanigans.
No worries. I feel like Mountain Standard Time is the one that everybody forgets about. It's like in between, sandwiched between Pacific and Central, and that's the only ones that people care about.
A lot of times I have to look it up. I have to Google it to see, what time it is in Mountain Standard Time. So, but thank you for being here. Thank you for being flexible. I appreciate it.
Oh, no problem.
So I've just been stalling. Obviously you've heard me ramble or sit there awkwardly looking at the video. But have you had a good day?
I have. It's been very busy. I'm getting ready for a road trip, so it's kind of like how much can I pack and how much am I going to still need in the next 3 days?
And now, is it a fun road trip?
It's supposed to be. It's the whole family going to the East Coast. This was planned before gas prices hit $5 a gallon.
Oh,
So,
so if you don't mind me asking, which state are you going to?
well, we're going to see family all over. So Nebraska, then Michigan, then New York.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah,
Yep.
that's a long trip.
Yeah, it's going to be in an RV. So hopefully it'll be a little bit more enjoyable. A lot more expensive to fill up, but more enjoyable.
Well, I hope you have a wonderful trip. That sounds fun. It's funny because my wife and I are going to be in New York probably at the end of this month. So we love popping on up there. It's about 3.5 hours away. So it's a great location. Anyways, for all those that are going to be watching this, why don't you go ahead and, if you wouldn't mind, just kind of introducing yourself.
Okay. My name is Mary Jane. I go by MJ. I am a stay-at-home mother currently. I struggled with that, identifying myself or introducing myself as a mom because I hold too tightly to roles I think that I get put in. But I don't know how to introduce myself without being starting with that I'm a mother of four because I've been a mom since I went from childhood to adulthood as a parent.
Wow. Okay.
So it is definitely, it's been a part of my life since I was 17 and pregnant, and now it is the best part of my life with my 2-year-old all the way to my 19-year-old. And then Colorado native, I always include because I don't have necessarily a whole lot of pride in my country, but I do have a whole lot of pride in my state. And I love the mountains and everything about here and the vibe. And so that is a huge part of my identity.
I heard nothing but amazing things about Colorado. I mean, everybody that the common thing for people that I've known here in Maryland is to retire in Colorado or to go to Colorado. It's just the thing here. They love it, and they love when they get there. So lots of blue skies, sun.
Oh yeah, I thought about moving to the Northwest once for the greenery, and I was like, I can't go from so much sunshine to no sunshine. The heat might balance it out for a year or two, and then I'd be depressed.
Yeah. So when you and I talked last time, I thought first of all, I love your page, and I love getting the chance to talk to you. So, but you brought up some interesting things about your life. Could you give us a little bit of background on your religious upbringing?
Absolutely. I think all of our stories kind of start with our parents' stories because they bring their trauma with them. And my parents were both raised as Catholic, non practicing really for my mother, but very, very deeply practicing an altar boy for my father, which they both rejected as an adult and became evangelical Christians. They wanted more of a personal relationship with God, and they believed that they found it in evangelical circles. So when they moved to Colorado, they moved to Colorado Springs, which I am only just now kind of understanding the scope of what that entailed after reading Jesus and John Wayne and realizing that Colorado Springs was kind of a hub for evangelicalism. It's where my parents got into focus on the family and decided to raise their children as homeschoolers who were very in the church, in the sense that we didn't just do church on Sunday. We did Bible study on Monday, prayer group on Tuesday, youth group on Wednesday. It was an all week affair.
Yeah.
So I was raised in God and religion and Christianity from before I could talk, before I was born. And at 4 years old, I fell out of a window and had a near-death experience where I believe I met God. And so that spirituality has stayed with me throughout my life, of this knowing of a higher power, and then just accepting what my parents told me to put a name on it. And it wasn't until I became an adult where I started, well, not even an adult, the last 2 years where I started kind of exploring on my own what I thought God looked like.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. I first of all, I love the fact you say all beginning stories begin with their parents' trauma.
Yeah.
I phrase that because, it makes me reflect on my life and my parents' trauma, right? And what was passed on to me. So that was very good. I love that. Okay, so you grew up then, if I understand the timeline correctly, in purity culture. So how has purity culture impacted your life?
It's funny because I didn't know there was a name for it. I thought that was just part of the Christian, virginity until you get married. I knew that my mom was a little different in the way that she approached virginity as being our entire worth of, this is all that women have to offer, and that uh, her whole goal in life was to keep us protected from boys. It was no spending the night at friends' houses if they had brothers. It was this deep, deep fear and mistrust of it seemed like men, but at the same time, it was like she was conditioning us to grow up to become a wife to a man, that we were supposed to, almost fear growing up, and
Right.
then get into a relationship and court. They didn't believe in dating. I think that was thanks to I Kissed Dating Goodbye. um,
That book.
yeah, that was not my favorite. So it was just an adventure of trying to keep my parents happy my whole life, not talking to boys on the phone, no boys, period. It was just this is who you're going to be. We were watching Little House on the Prairie growing up. So I grew up thinking that dating would be courtship, and that it would be chaperoned, and that you would have somebody following along in the back of the car, watching you on dates. And so when I had my first boyfriend, who ended up being my first husband, it was a very confusing time because I didn't know how to tell my parents that I was now lying to them about dating somebody. So I went from purity culture and feeling like a good girl to shame. And I felt like that there was no in between with the purity culture. You're either the virgin or the whore. And that kind of became my identity for a while, was just, well, if you can't win, why try? And so it kind of pushed me away from God because I felt so much shame. And it was just a whole lifestyle of, until I got married a couple years later to my boyfriend, who I'd gotten pregnant with, and then we started a family together. Until we reached that point where we could go to the courthouse, nobody took us seriously. It was an embarrassment to go to church, or it was it felt like everybody's eyes were on me, being the pregnant teenager in the church. And it was a hard lesson because my parents kind of just backed out at that time. They went through their own divorce and separation, and kind of just decided that, well, we tried. we failed with our firstborn, let's try with our second or our third.
Oh, that's terrible. I'm sorry. Wow. Okay. So let me just kind of piggyback off that answer, because obviously one of the things around purity culture is always shame, right? Okay. You're an adult. You have children. Did that impact the way you raised your kids?
I would say not until my daughter was born. And I consider myself very feminist, and have spent many years saying, oh, I'm not going to do like gender roles with my kids, and I'm going to avoid this, or, let my boys play with dolls and let my girls play with trucks. And then my daughter was born, and I had this fear of her not feeling worthy as she grew up, and wondering if she would reach the point in her life, which I reached at 7 or 8 years old, where I asked my parents, does God like boys better? And I never wanted my daughter to feel like there was a lesser gender. And so it became this, and she was born in 2020, April 2020. And so it was a life like awakening moment where I was like, what can I do to instill self-esteem in my daughter when I don't have it myself? So it became a journey of, okay, work through your own trauma so you're not passing it along to your daughter,
Right.
and make sure that this is something that you're encouraging from day one, and it's not something that you try to catch up on later in life.
Wow. Yeah, it's amazing how that culture changes our outlook. And then when we have kids ourselves, it's like, oh man, what am I teaching my kid here? It's kind of like the light bulb comes on, right? Like I have a daughter, strong-willed, determined, and she was always fuck the system. It didn't matter if I was trying to do purity culture or not, right? She was always going to be that one, like, I don't believe in it, so I'm going this way, right? Which is great. But yeah, it totally changes our outlook on parenting. So you've always been spiritual somewhat, at least, up where. So how do you redefine yourself spiritually now? And I'm not asking for you to put a label on yourself because I hate labels. But where do you kind of fall spiritually now?
I've been referring to myself as deconstructing for the last year and a half, and that was thanks to Instagram and learning that there was a name for what I was going through.
Who knew, right?
Right? I was like, oh, this is like a thing. There are other people doing this. I think I had always believed that church was community, and that without church, I would lose community. And I have found a much more authentic community through the exploring and the questioning and the digging and not knowing than I have ever found in the idea of knowing for certain. And I feel like my spirituality changed in the sense that I went from being completely certain of what I believed to not having really. I have ideas, I have vague ideas of what I believe, but I don't feel like I have to have answers anymore. And I don't feel like that's what life is about necessarily. It's not about having the answers, but exploring the questions and living through the questions and all the lessons that come with each one. So my spirituality has gotten so much bigger. It feels like I went from being in a balloon to being in this, having the whole world opened up to me. And all of a sudden, I'm not just reading the Bible, I'm reading every book I can get my hands on. So whether it's Kabbalah or Judaism or, I just want to explore all of it. And I'm finding trying to learn now what race looks like and white privilege in that sense of not appropriating from other religions and other spiritualities, because I feel like what I'm doing is making it a very eclectic spirituality for myself, which takes, the ahisma or the do no harm from Hinduism and the meditation from Buddhism and the, even parts of Jesus from Christianity, and taking all of these different things and merging them, but also not wanting to do it in a disrespectful way to the other cultures and the other belief systems and the people that believe that there's a right way or a wrong way to do their faith. So that's been my biggest challenge lately, is trying to figure out how do I do this in a respectful way, but also be true to myself.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, I think labels are for other people, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I get asked all the time, Brad, what are you? Like, are you agnostic? Are you atheist? Where are you going? I refuse to give them an answer like that. Deconstruction is all about learning and growing up through wherever you were planted, right? It's growing through the spirituality you originally had to explore and learn more. And so I'm like you. I'm just like thirsty, because I realize that what I may believe today will change tomorrow with the more I learn, right? So, I mean, to label myself would be a disservice to growth, in my opinion. So I love that answer. And I love the fact that you are looking through those other religions, philosophies, whatever you want to call them, and being aware of, our white privilege within that, really, because we are very privileged individuals, right? So with that being said, how has your deconstruction process impacted your family and your extended family?
I think that the biggest impact is that I like myself more. And I think that that actually plays out in positive ways in my immediate family, most my children, my husband. And it's funny because my therapist and I were talking about this, about the identity issues that we get from looking back at who we were when we first got together with somebody. When my husband first met me, I felt like I was in the peak of my physical condition. And 2 kids later, I'm like, I don't feel so great about myself. And she says, well, what about what other parts of you have changed? I'm like, well, my belief system, like how I look at life, how I approach things. She's like, well, would your husband rather have that you or the former you? And it was such a powerful, like, I have changed in positive ways that have brought things to my family that never would have been introduced, have brought new ways of looking at things, I describe myself as an enneagram type 1, which is the perfectionist slash reformer who believes in terms of black and white, right and wrong.
Yeah.
And it took me like deconstructing that belief system that there's a right and wrong way to do things before I could actually see that there's 100,000 other versions of what is right and wrong in other people's perspectives. And I think bringing that into my children and my parents has made our relationship more authentic. It's made it so that we can communicate without our language being restricted to Christian terms, without it being a evil or good, the battles, spiritual warfare. I feel like that's what I grew up relating everything to, with spiritual warfare.
Correct.
And now I find myself turning into gardening analogies or, cooking, just different metaphors for life that I'm like, I never even thought about things that way.
Yeah.
My kids love it. They love being able to be like, oh, well, what about this? And I'm like, I didn't think about that before. It used to like scare me to hear somebody bring up something that was so different from what I believed. And now I'm like, oh, that's really interesting.
It's funny when you say spiritual warfare, I get this like twing of Frank Peretti or something coming through, you know?
The book that I used to buy and give out to people, This Present Darkness. Holy cow.
Totally right. It just scared the crap out of me.
Right? Especially about college. I think that my biggest takeaway from reading those books was that once I go to college, I'm going to have to fight for my faith like hell because the demons are going to try to keep me away from God.
I read it when I was in college. I was a Bible major and everything. I read that and I'm like, oh my goodness, how much am I missing? There's spiritual warfare all over the place and I'm missing it, right? And so anyways, that was brutal. I jumping to your page. Okay, thank you for letting us know a lot more about yourself. But jump to your page. I love and adore your content.
Thank you.
Page. I think it's beautiful, and the voices that are spoken even through that, through your content. You support women's voices, all right, and try to push understanding beyond gender. Would you mind sharing the main purpose behind your page?
Absolutely. So it's named after the book Dance of the Dissident Daughter by Sue Monk Kidd. And that book actually helped me relate to God in the feminine. So God is the mother and God is the sister. God is the ultimate mother. I think that for me was life-changing because I could never see myself in God and I could never see God in myself. And so by bringing the feminine into what the divine could look like, it made me feel like I was worthy. And as I read through that book, it awoke something in me that I was like, if other women heard this, they would be liberated. They would be freed from this shame that kind of the purity culture has kind of infiltrated in every aspect of our being. And so my hope was that if I just shared a couple of the things that I read, then maybe somebody else would get something out of that for one day. I used to read Jesus Calling for my devotional every morning, and I kind of think of this as a devotional of my way of sharing some tidbit of wisdom. And I try to mostly go with women authors, but there's a lot of, I think, men that cover very feminine visuals of God in an excellent way. So I definitely use a lot of Don Miguel Ruiz and Rob Bell because they were instrumental in my being able to see God in a bigger way. But I think my whole page has just become dedicated to expanding people's vision of God and seeing it in nature, in animals, in other people, in and also in lifting women's voices because I don't think that they're lifted up to the same level as men's. Because when I look at all the books that I read growing up, all my fiction books are written by women, but I would look at all the life help books and they were all by men. And it seemed to me that with all the wisdom that I was finding from female authors, that maybe it wasn't being shared enough. And so I thought that if I did a page dedicated to that, and then I found art to pair with it, and the artist would come to me and ask, do you mind getting my permission first? So I started asking all these artists, and it was a great way to connect with other women doing their thing and sharing their passions and their creativity and with the world.
I think that's brilliant. And I thank you for doing that because I believe it challenges us to, I don't want to say, well, in a sense, look at God, whoever God may be, differently. Because you're right, a lot of men, especially evangelical men, are the ones that are writing about how to become more spiritual, right? Or, the masculine terminology about God, right? Instead of the possible feminine, which is located in.
Lost you.
I think that's beautiful because it's challenged me.
Brad, I think I'm losing you. Hear me? Hi. Okay. I think you're
Can you
back.
hear me?
Well, now you're frozen again.